Hi friends, welcome back to Sew HoneyBea. For those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Bee. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be making the Pixie Clear, which is part of this FoldNZip series from Sophisticated Crafts Designs. Now in this little bag, I incorporated two of the things that I love doing most, and that is working with bridal laces and sewing handbags. Now in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I used the bridal lace along with clear vinyl to make this little bag. Now this pattern does in fact use binding. Now on the inside there's a clear vinyl pocket and a clear pocket on the front as well. Now just like the other FoldNZip series, you have a choice between a crossbody bag, or you can use the 3 D-rings on the back to switch it out to a backpack style. Now also in this tutorial, I will be showing you how I took the clear vinyl and the bridal lace and sandwiched them together so that I could get this beautiful vinyl. I hope you will use this technique of taking the clear vinyl and bridal lace and making this bag. Once you see how I've done it and how easy it is, I know you're going to want to make one. So let's go ahead and get started. Now I want to share this with you up close. As you can see, I'm sandwiching a piece of bridal lace in between 2 pieces of clear plastic. Okay, and I've used the edge up here at the top. Now this lace has sequins in it as well as embroidery. This silver here is actually a cording, but it's made to look like beads. So if you choose to make one of these, you need to really pay attention to that, because if you are using a beaded lace, then you are going to have to remove all the beads in your seam allowance and then tack them down so that they won't unravel. But with this lace, it's not beads, it's cording, but it's made to look like beads. So this is my flap and my top portion. So it's going to be like this, okay? These are my 2 sides. I've actually put them on a piece of black vinyl so you can see it a lot better. Done a true mirroring here, meaning that when I cut out these 2 panels, they are exactly the same, but going in opposite directions. So if I laid them right sides together, the lace is right on top of each other. Okay, and that's what a true mirroring is in tailoring. So I wanted to share how I did each piece with you in case you wanted to try this for yourself. I have a piece of the lace here, okay? As you can see, it's just regular lace. And I have some clear vinyl here as well. Now when I cut out the clear vinyl, I make sure that it sticks to itself so that as I'm cutting it out, it will be exactly the same size. So now I'm going to put down 1 piece, and what I'm doing is I'm putting the lace right, let me turn my clips this way, I'm putting the lace right at the edge of that clear vinyl. Now I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing. Okay, now I'm going to take my other piece of clear vinyl and lay it directly on top of that lace. I'm going to put it right at the corner, remove my clip, and then clip it through all layers. So now you can see that it is all one piece, and now I'm going to kind of put my hands through it to make sure that there's no ripples, that there's nothing that needs to be adjusted, okay? So now I've got white thread in my machine, and now I'm going to baste all the way around. Okay, and there's our lace back panel all complete. And so there's everything that we need, and now we can treat it as one piece, and it's still fairly thin. Okay, and so now we can just treat it as one piece of vinyl like for any other bag, and then sew it together. So now I have fabric tack glue, okay, and I have some Swarovski crystals and my zipper pull. Now what I'm wanting to do is put the crystals on my zipper pull. Now my zipper will be closing from right to left, so naturally the zipper will hang probably like this. I've got an alcohol swab. I'm cleaning any oils or anything like that off my zipper pull. This one here is the one that I'm going to use for the front zipper pocket. These two I will be using for my main zipper. Okay, and you can see how pretty those look. Oh, I'm really glad I did that, dressing up those zipper pulls. Okay, so now I'm going to set these aside and let them dry completely before I use them. Okay, so now I want to go over all my pieces. For the webbing, for the crossbody strap and backpack strap, I have silver webbing that I will be using, and it is 1 inch wide. I also am going to use end protectors for that strap. I have 2 swivel clasps and 1 slider. I have 1 lobster clasp that is 1/2 inch wide, and that is for the key leash. Then I have a total of 5 D-rings, 3 for the backpack and 2 for the crossbody. Okay, so those are all my hardware for that. I'm also going to be putting on a label that says, "You look really pretty today." Now to go over my pieces, I have one of my base portions, and that is out of vinyl. Then I have it out of lining, out of a bridal taffeta. Then I have a piece of stabilizer that I will be ironing onto that. I also have a webbing and a vinyl strip, and this is for the handle. I have a piece for my D-rings and the key leash, and that'll be out of the vinyl. I have actually 4 pieces of clear vinyl. One set will be for the exterior back pocket. The other set will be for the inside pocket. I then have another portion for my base that is going to be out of vinyl. I have a piece of stabilizer and then a piece of bridal white fabric. Now for my sides, you can see that I have a true mirroring of each piece. Then I have my flap and front panel, and then my exterior panel for the back. And then I also have another D-ring, and that is for another little pouch that I will be making for the key leash. Okay, so let me put all these pieces aside, and let's get started first of all with our strap. Okay, so now I have cut my webbing down to the correct size. Now I want to get my lighter, and I want to burn these ends to protect them from fraying. Okay, and now I have cut these very straight so that I can get these pieces and put them over just like that. Okay, so now I want to sew across using a top stitch so I can secure each of these tabs onto the end. Okay, so now I want to cut them down to size. Okay, so there's our both protectors there. Okay, now I want to take my slider, and you'll see that there's a right side and a wrong side. This is my right side, so I'm going to go up on one side and down the other. If you don't want to use rivets, you can in fact just sew across here through all of these layers, and that's just fine. I am going to put rivets in here, so I'm going to lay this across here so that I can see where I want to put each rivet, making sure it's in the center. I'm going to put a dollop of frayed check on both of these. because I do not want that webbing to fray any more than it has to. So there's that portion done. Down here, make sure that it is on the end and that there is no turns or anything. Okay, and so now this is my right side. So I want it to have a clean side on it, and both edge protectors will be on this side. Okay, so that'll be like that. So I've got to put this on there like that. And now I'm going to do the same thing with putting the rivets on this side. Now our crossbody strap is complete. Now I have the vinyl for my D-rings. I have my 2 side panels and my 5 D-rings. And I've drawn a line down the center. And so I'm going to put double stick tape and then fold the edges into the center. The D-rings that I am using are 3/4 of an inch. Now in the pattern she has it for 1 inch D-rings. So I cut my D-ring strip to accommodate for a 3/4 inch D-ring. Okay, now it's all top stitched all the way down. Okay, now I'm going to mark it and cut it down. Now she gives you the measurement of how long each D-ring strip should be. I'm color coding these D-rings with different colored clips so they will not get mixed up with each other. These 3 that I'm putting in red are for the backpack, and these 2, they are longer, and they are for the crossbody bag. Now I don't need these 3 right now for the backpack, so I'm going to put them aside. Okay, so now I'm ready to put the D-rings on my sides. So what we're trying to do is put this D-ring tab on there like that. Okay, so now I'm going to put that one aside, and I'm going to show you how I did it with this one here. You will notice that I transferred my D-ring area over to the other side of my pattern piece so that I could do the tab for the right side. So now I'm going to use this side for the left side. So now here is my D-ring. And what I've done is I've put both sides in on themselves like this, with the D-ring on the top. And now I want to hold it right there and then clip it. Now I want to really make sure that the 2 areas right there are meeting exactly in the center. I need to make sure that I place my tab on exactly the same spot on the right and left sides. So I've butted up my D-ring tab according to the end or the back of my side. So I want to do that same thing to this one here. Okay, now let me get a piece of double stick tape and put it on the back. But not too long. Okay, this is the way it should look. Okay, so now I want to put my D-ring tab right on this line. Right there. You see how where the 1 inch D-ring line is? If you are using a 1 inch D-ring, it'll go all the way to here. Now I want to start sewing it from the top first, and I've also already added my zipper foot to my machine. So that'll help out in me getting really close to my D-ring. Now I've got my presser foot all the way up, and I'm dropping my needle right where I want it. Now I'm not going to back stitch.
I'm going to go all the way around and then pull my threads to the back, tie them off, and then burn them, just like I did right there. And I'm going really very slow. And when I'm getting over to this point, I'm lifting up my presser foot so that my needle can go down exactly where I want it. Now I don't want to damage my D-ring, so I'm going to put my hump jumper right here to protect that. I went one stitch too far, so I'm going to lift up my needle and my presser foot, ease it back, and then drop my needle right where I want it. Now I want to completely finish out this square, so I'm going to lift up my presser foot and put a hump jumper to help me to get one more stitch so that I end up right where I started. Now just to pull my threads to the back, tie them off, and then burn them. But you want to be really careful not to burn your vinyl. Okay, so there's my D-ring tabs, all complete. Now I can go on to the next step.
Okay, so now I have my handle, and I want to just burn my edges of my webbing. And now I'm going to sew really close to this edge here. Now normally the vinyl piece would be a lot larger or a lot wider, and then we would fold the edges into the center and then place it on top of the webbing. So I'm going to try it out a new way so that my handle is not so thick. Got to change out my zipper foot back to my standard foot. And this is just keeping it really close to that edge, as close as I can. All the way down. One more stitch. Okay. Okay, and you can see there how close that is to the edge. Okay, so there's my handle, and it's complete. For my slip pockets, I'm actually using a mesh pocket because I do not want anything to distort from the lace. Okay, so I'm going to be using a clear vinyl pocket. Now I have folded down a portion of the top, and now I'm going to sew it across right here, very close to the edge, so that way it's got a finished edge on the top. So there you can see how close to that edge I am. And so now I'm actually going to put another row of stitching across the top to reinforce that edge. Okay, so there's my slip pocket. Now, if you are going to be using mesh, what you are going to do is you are going to take your mesh pocket and you are going to put binding on the top. But because I'm using lace, I want it to be very minimal of the things that are going on in the inside. Okay, so now I'm going to set that aside and go on to the next step. Okay, so here's my front panel, okay? I have pinned my panel back to my pattern piece, and this is the front panel. And you see this right here where we're supposed to cut it away for the zipper? What I have done is I have transferred it to the top of my vinyl. And I have outlined or marked the box on the inside of that panel. So you see that? The reason why I marked it inside the panel is because I marked it with a Sharpie, with a marker. So that way you can see it in this video. I tried it with the silver, and I can see it, but you can't see it. So I marked it just inside, or just shorter than the actual box, so that now when I go to cut it out, I'm going to cut it just a little larger than my marking. I'm going to leave the white paper behind it because you can see it easier that way. And now I'm going to cut through all of the layers. And I am really taking my time here because I want to make sure that I'm cutting it out just right on the outside of that marking. And I might have to do this in sections to where I do the top layer to remove that, and then remove the bottom layer,
and then remove the lace portion with scissors. Okay, so now I want to make sure that the lace is cut away right where I want it. So now my zipper will be like that. Okay, with those crystals, I think that's going to be really pretty. That's one thing about working with lace and sequins. Every time I've made a wedding dress, you have sequins and little pearls and lace and everything everywhere. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut down my zipper. Okay, now I want to cinch my zipper ends, even with the glue on it, the double stick tape. Okay, so now here's my zipper. I want it going this way so that is closing from right to left. Now I'm going to lay this on there so that it is right in the center. Okay, now let me get in between here because there's a little piece of colored vinyl. Good thing I saw that before I sewed it all up, or sewed it closed. I'm really trying. This double stick tape, I'm not used to it being this, having double stick tape this sticky. I love it and hate it at the same time. Okay, let's see. But just work with it. Now I'm going to sew on the zipper, and I want to be really careful about not back stitching and just being really careful. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to trim up any lace fringe that is coming through, like right here. Okay, so now my zipper's in there. I feel really happy about that. Okay, so now I have my zipper pocket lining, and this is the back side of my zipper. Okay, because this, when it's opened up, there's no back side to this pocket, you see. So we are going to put this back here, and then it's going to be the back side to complete out this pocket. Okay, so now, that's one thing about sewing with lace and the sequins, they get everywhere. Okay, so now I've got this laying down, and it is clear vinyl. Okay, so there's no right way or wrong way. So lay it down, and now I want to place this on top of it and press it down because the vinyl will stick to itself. Okay, so now you can see that that vinyl is right there. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a second set of stitching across here and then down here and around. Okay, but before I do that, I'm going to switch out to my regular zipper foot again. Now I am going to clip this in place, but pretty much I don't really need to because this vinyl sticks to itself. But just in case, better to be safe than sorry. Okay, so now I'm going to start with sewing across here first. Okay, so now when I open up this zipper pocket, there's a back to it. See how it's a zipper pocket now? and it's fully enclosed. I'm going to trim away this top portion that is extra or excess on the top. Now, you may or may not have a little bit extra on the top. I did, because I cut mine just a little bit larger. Okay, so now I'm ready to go on to my next step. So the next step is to get our slip pocket, okay, that we folded over and basted, to put that now back here. And I want the folded edge or the raw edge to be on the inside. So now you can see that that is a slip pocket right there. And another thing that's really nice about doing the back pocket like this is that that zipper is completely enclosed and finished off in there. So it won't get caught on anything having to do with this here. Okay, let's go on to our next step. Okay, so now I again have pinned my front panel to my piece here, okay, right here. Okay, and that is because I want to put on my handle. You see right there? That is where our handle is supposed to go, our placement. So I want to hold it up so that I am putting my handle right at that area and then putting clips on it. I'm doing the same thing to this side as well. Okay, and now I can remove this portion of it. So now I've marked my webbing right where I want to sew up. So I'm going to sew here, across, and then down. Okay. And I want to start and stop exactly at those points. Now I want to be sure that I'm going to be going over the stitches that I've already got on there. Okay. I'm really trying to get it right exactly where I want it. So I'm going directly over those same exact stitches. So it looks like there's only one actual line of stitching. Okay. So you see how it looks like there's only one line of stitching. So now I'm going to do the same thing to this side over here. And right here I can see that my point is right there. So I want the same thing on this side. Right there. Okay, so now it's time to add our base onto the bottom. So I want to get my exterior and line that up on this side, right sides together, my exterior with the exterior. Okay. And then flip it around and then put my interior lining piece with the inside lining. Okay. And now I want to sew across using a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Oh, wait a second. Forgot. Before I do this, I've got to trim up the bulk out of these seams here. Okay, so now I can open it out. Now I'm going to top stitch across the top here. Okay, so now I want to put my stabilizer in between here. And then close up these three sides. Okay, so now I want to get my Z2, which is the main zipper, and I want to put 2 zipper pulls on them going in opposite directions. Now we're going to need a lot of clips for this section. I want to find the center of my zipper and then pin it to the top. matching the two centers together. Next, I want to be sure that my zipper is all the way opened up, and then just clip away. I have already made quite a few of these, either the backpack, the travel, the Pixie, the hamburger one. I've made so many of them, and with each one, I think each one has its own personality. If you've already made one, leave it in the comments below and let us know about it. Now, as you can see, I have changed out to my zipper foot. And I'm basting all the way around. Now, while basting the zipper on, I wish I would have stayed with my standard presser foot. It would have been much easier. Okay, now I want to zip it up. Make sure everything looks okay, even though it's just basted. Okay, so now I want to unzip my zipper and sew it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now this is a bias tape maker, and I really like this when I'm making my own bias tape. It makes it so much easier. You just feed it in, pull it out, and iron it as you go, and then fold it over one more time. And it's just that simple. You have a whole piece of double fold bias tape. And you can use the fabric that you are using for your bag. Here I'm using the Bridal Lining. Okay, now it's time to go ahead and put on our bias tape all the way around. Just take your time here. And now fold it over and then clip it all the way around. If you can notice here, I did have to cut it down because it was too wide for what I wanted it to do. So I did in fact cut it down, and it was just right. But because I had used the bias tape maker and ironed it already, it was already ready to go. So just keep going all the way around. Now I'm sewing my bias tape on, and I'm going just shy of that 1/4 inch or that previous stitching that I sewed the zipper on with, so that way my zipper's stitching line would not be interfered with. So in sewing the bias tape on, I'm just on the other side or the outside of that seam allowance. You can also use a hemostat to help you go around these corners. But overall, just go really slow. Okay, close up your zipper. Take a good look at it. Make sure there's no tucks in the zipper or anything. And then you can go on to the next step. Now I've got the second part of my base. And I'm going to now attach both the vinyl piece and the lining piece at the same time. And now clipping it and getting ready to sew. Now this seam will be sewn on using a 3/8 inch seam allowance. But before I sew that seam, I've got to switch back to my standard presser foot. Now trim down your zippers Add your stabilizer in between the lining and vinyl piece. Clip it all the way around and then baste along the bottom and top stitch across the top. Now I don't want any skip stitches, so I'm going to use the hump jumper if I need to. Now I want to trim down all the sides and so that they are all one piece and the same size. Now take a look at it all the way around. Make sure that you're happy with it, and I am. So now I'm going to go on to my next step. Okay, so now we're at the back panel. So now this is the mesh pocket. Now if you're doing a mesh pocket, it is not going to look like this because I'm doing a clear vinyl pocket. So now what you're going to do is you are going to take your mesh pocket or your clear vinyl pocket and you are going to put a piece of binding across the top if you are using a mesh pocket. Now since I'm using a clear vinyl pocket, I am just folding over the top edge and then putting 2 stitching lines across the top to reinforce it. Okay, so now I have my back lace panel. I'm taking the slip pocket that I've just done and placing it on top. And now I want to baste along all 3 sides, making this one piece. Okay, so now we are ready for our backpack D-ring tabs. Now, if you're not doing the backpack option, you don't need to do this and you can skip ahead. But if you are going to grab your 3 backpack D-rings. Remember, they're color-coded, so once you get them lined up right where you want them, go ahead and baste all 3 on. Okay, now I want to use a tag. I could put it right on the edge, but this seam allowance is going to be 3/8 of an inch. So if I were to put my tag right at the edge and baste it on, what would happen is the whole top line would be then sewn into the seam allowance. So as you can see, I've just basted it just inside that seam allowance. Okay, now I want to grab my right and left sides and I want to put them right sides together, the right on the right side and the left on the left side. I'm going to sew this using a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Be really careful when you go over those D-rings. Be kind to your machine and go slow. Okay, so now you can see what I was talking about with that logo. Okay, now I'm going to be using the same bridal lining as I did for the inside as for my binding. So I'm ripping a strip and I'm cutting it in half so that I will have 1 for each side. Okay, so now just sew it on using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. But first, don't forget to clip your edges because this is really important, especially if you're using a domestic machine. So what I had to do was just unpick that one side, clip down my edges to reduce the bulk, and then sew on my binding again. Okay, now it's time to do the other side. Okay, now let's go on to our next step. Now the pattern doesn't call for a key leash in this one, but I really like using that. So I took my vinyl, drew a line down the center, put double stick tape, folded the edges in on each other, And now I'm going to top stitch all along all 4 sides using a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, now I want to add a rivet to my key leash. And you've seen me do this many times with the other FoldNZip series. Okay, just baste it on right where I want it. Now we are ready to do our final steps, and that is putting our front panel and our back panel together. So I want to match up the bottom edges and clip it. Now you'll notice that I'm sewing it along the bottom instead of clipping it all the way around and then sewing it in one fell swoop, because this was a tester's tip given to us in the trio bag, and it was a tip given by Colleen Davis. And I tried it out with the FoldNZip series and it works wonderfully. So the tip is that you will baste or sew along the bottom first, and so that when you go around those corners, it makes it so much easier to catch everything from your transition of your vinyl piece of your back bottom all the way when you make that curve in the zipper. Now it is so much easier if you open out your zipper and then just start clipping it all the way around. And for this one, you're going to need a lot of clips too. As you can see, as I'm clipping into this corner, because I sewed the back bottom, clipping that corner is so much easier. Now just take your time and use as many clips as you need. As you can see, I use a lot of them. Also, you'll notice that in putting on this zipper, I didn't have to clip it to go around those corners. But as you'll see later on, I do clip it just to make sure. Now, if you have a zipper foot, be sure to use it, because it makes it so much easier to go around all of this at an even seam allowance. And just keep maneuvering the bag. Just move it in a way that makes it easier for you to sew. I hope you can see all of this. Okay, there it is. Now turn out your bag, take a good look at it, zip it up. Make sure there was no tucks and that your zipper is even and that you're happy with it. Don't worry about your seam allowance here, because it could create problems in trying to zip up your bag. But now we're going to fix that because I'm taking a very sharp pair of scissors and I'm cutting away the vinyl seam allowance. Now I'm not cutting all of it away, but just about half of it. So I'm cutting about 1/8 of an inch off. If you will notice, I am not cutting the zipper tape. I am only cutting away the clear vinyl and the lace. Go slow and be really careful. And the reason why I am actually cutting away this clear vinyl is so that there isn't such a harsh edge. Okay, you can see I still have all of the seam allowance for the zipper tape. It's just the clear vinyl that I have cut away. So now when I go and add on my binding, I don't have such a hard and rigid seam allowance edge there. So that when I go to zip up my zipper, I'll have a softer edge and it won't interfere with my zipper so much. Okay, now get your binding piece and go all the way around, putting on your binding. And now I'm doing the binding in a 2-step process in this bag, as you've noticed. If you're using waterproof canvas or you are using a non-fraying material, then you can do it in 1 step where you just fold it over, clip it, and sew all the binding on. But because I'm wanting this to be a little bit more of a fancier bag, I'm using Bridal Lining for the inside for the binding as well. So take your time, especially when you are going around these corners here. Use your hemostat or some kind of an awl or something if you need to, okay? And just keep going all the way around. Be sure that when you are going over the seams for your back panel, that you go slow because that could be really rough on your machine, especially if you're using a domestic machine. Even though we eliminated a lot of the bulk in those areas, it still could be tough. But if you just go slow, you can do it. Okay, so now I'm folding it over and getting ready to sew all the way around so that my binding is complete. Now, if you guys have made any of the FoldNZip bags and you guys have found little tips and tricks that have helped you, add it in the comments below because that way we can help out each other. And then all of us can know that tip and use it on our other bags. Okay, now go all the way around. We're almost done. If you've already done one of the FoldNZip backpacks, this is just the next step. And as a matter of fact, these ones are even easier and they're a lot quicker too. This is always my favorite part, and that is turning out the bag, zipping up the zipper, and getting the first look at it. Now I hope you will make one too. Be sure to tag me on social media if you do, over at HoneyBea on Instagram. Wow, I really like the way that this bag came out. And also, Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye.